All right, hello. Today we are going to be talking about gestural drawings. So a gesture drawing or a gestural drawing is the first step in a drawing. So it's a way that you can very quickly just get the idea, the essence, the feel of whatever subject, object you're drawing. Okay, the idea of a gesture is to keep it very loose, very free flowing, and to work general to specific. So the idea of a gesture is to get the overall shape, the overall feeling. These are almost always done very quickly. So about 2 minutes is a good length for a gesture drawing, and actually they can even be done quicker than that. If you are using a gestural drawing as the foundation for your drawing, you'll probably want to work a little bit lighter, but then you get to constantly adapt and build on that so that you can then eventually get to a complete drawing. We talked a little bit last time about how some artists use gesture drawings as their final complete drawing because they want to give that sense of the unfinished. They want to get the sense of bold emotions, broken line. They don't want something that feels too perfect or too finished if that is the goal of the final artwork. So a gestural drawing can be complete in and of itself. I think they can be beautiful in their unfinished forms, but more often than not, they are just used to start the drawing, to really get that pencil on paper and to give yourself a foundation, give yourself the feeling, and then you can build and build and build and build upon that gestural drawing. Gesture drawings also, they work quickly, so it's meant to sort of get you out of your own head in the idea that you just free flowing. Start with lines and then continue changing, continue adapting, but really work quickly to get that foundation on paper, get the essence, get the feeling of your subject, and then from there you continue to work, hammer down, hammer down, hammer down, add more detail, texture, value, etc., etc. So there's really an order of operations, and number one in that order of operations for drawing is the gesture. Additionally, for those of you who mentioned that you really want to nail down your individual style, gestural drawings are a powerful way to do that because, again, it's the first impression. It's the way that you translate an object. So it's a good exercise to really get you very quickly saying, ooh, there's that 3D object. How do I translate that into 2D? So gestural drawings tend to be really unique. They are really kind of a personal first take, first impression, and everyone's gesture drawings are going to look very different, and that is beautiful and wonderful. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about gesture drawings and see that in real time. There's a couple of things to note even before you begin your gesture drawing. Number one, what are you working with? So if your gesture drawing is the beginning, your foundation for a drawing that you plan to finish, you probably want to start with a really light pencil, maybe a 3H. Anything on the H spectrum is going to be lighter, and anything on the B spectrum is going to be darker. So to demo, I'm going to go with the HB, which is right in the middle, just so you can see that better. But if you plan on using your gesture drawing for a foundation, it's just easier to start with a lighter line that you can more easily adapt later on in the drawing. Other things to note, the way you hold your pencil is actually really important. So there's an impulse, especially if you're stressed or if you're nervous, to really choke up on that pencil, hold it, grip it really tight, and do lots of tiny little things. And that can be helpful for small detail work, but it's actually a lot better, more free-flowing with your gesture drawing if you hold it back a little bit looser, be gentle, just be a little more free-flowing so that you can get a better sense of some free-flowing lines. And I do also tend to shift between this kind of standard hold and something that's a little more kind of loose. So just see what feels comfortable with you. How can you get the type of line control that you want and need? And if you really want to play around, you can play with really holding back, or even If you wanted that broad stroke using the side of your lead there, you can do something like that. So the way that you hold your pencil to begin with is an important place to start. Okay, another thing to really think about is starting general to specific. So we always want to work in a drawing general to specific. What that means is that if I'm drawing these scissors, I'm not going to start with that little screw and do a really fabulous job of making that perfectly round, working with this little shape here, getting the lights and shadows exactly the way I want, then maybe work out from there. Because if I do that, by the time I get to the end of my drawing and I notice, oh, something is actually really wrong, that's the wrong perspective, that's the wrong shape, then I have to go back and I have to delicately change every single other thing about that drawing. So instead, if I'm working general to specific, I'm going to, again, hold my pencil really loosely and just get the general idea, the general vibe, the overall shape, and just think really loose about it. And you can see I'm constantly correcting those lines so that I can get this sensation. And I'm breaking down all those individual shapes. How do these shapes combine with each other? You know, so I can constantly correct that shape. And this needs to be much longer. So I can make all of those corrections if I am working general to specific, keeping loose, constantly correcting, and getting the overall shape. And if it helps you to do some structural lines, just to get the idea, oh, this line actually goes down here, this shape kind of works like that. You can use curvilinear lines and shapes. You can use more geometric straight shapes, just to get the overall idea of the structure of whatever it is you're drawing. And if I work from this, I can then go back. If I was working in a light pencil, or maybe go back in and erase, and I can go back and say, okay, now I feel happy with this overall shape. Now I can work on some of those smaller details, because the overall shape, the movement is working for me. Okay, so then I can go back in, add a few more details if I want. So work general to specific, keep it really loose. You can constantly correct. Do not be afraid of your eraser. If things go awry, you can always erase, change, modify. Okay, and it is helpful to do this from life, and gesture drawings are particularly poignant when you have something that is moving, something that has character. So I recommend you go out into the world and see moving people, moving things. 10 seconds per gesture, a moving subject. Don't be afraid if it moves and changes. But for the sake of this video, I have these photo cards here. This is an art project of photographers, so I'm just going to do some quick gesture drawings of these. Okay, and again, working very general to very specific. There are very few rules in a gesture drawing. You are just looking for the overall shape, correcting as you go. Again, the idea is to get a handle on how to take the 3D world, translate it into a 2D drawing, correct, change, lots of lines. Don't be afraid to change, adapt, and the overall feeling is what you're trying to go for. So again, I'm working really general, getting that overall shape, and then I'm just correcting. How do these shapes interact? Does something need to be bigger? Does something need to be smaller? Is it not aligned exactly correctly? How do these shapes play and interact with each other? When I get to those details, is everything going to line up in the way that I want it to? Okay, so that would be an example of a gesture of this photo right here. Let's try another one. Oh, the weird eyeball shoe. I'm loving it. Again, work loose. Don't take it too seriously. Know that no one has to see these gesture drawings when you're completely finished. Know that it can change and adapt. Don't be scared to try different things. Find your style. Find what works for you. Some artists actually love to keep some of the gesture drawing because, again, it can have a lot of mood, it can have a lot of feeling, it can add a lot of context to, the overall concept and the tone of the drawing. So I am one of those artists that likes to just reveal a little bit of the gesture, even in the final work. I like to keep some of it because I find that those little moments feel very genuine and authentic. I like to see the history of the drawing. All right, and to kind of conclude this, I would like your exercise to be to go out into the world. Go to a coffee shop, go to a cafe, go to a park, and pick different objects. Try some that are moving, try some that are not moving. Don't spend more than 2 minutes per gesture drawing. They can be done quicker than that, but do make sure that you have enough to serve as a foundation. Okay, you can use a variety of different line widths, line types, drawing styles, some of those different pencil handholds. Try a number of different things. I also recommend doing them bigger to start with because the bigger they are, the more you can kind of get your body into it and the less likely you are to really try to get into those individual details. That tends to be, a way that you hold your body a little tighter too, is when you're doing a really small drawing. So try to make them larger. I would say no more than 4 gesture drawings per page. And if they do overlap a little bit, that's okay. But try to give them space. Give them space to breathe. Make them a little larger. That will be easier, especially if this is something that you are just starting. Okay, so go out into the world, do a minimum of 8 gesture drawings, and that will be housed in your sketchbook. We'll turn that in with our Unit 1 portfolio.